has finished his role, and the new head of Shabak will enter his Shin Bet, I think you call it in the United States, if I remember correctly. He will enter his position, and there was a very thrilling evening telling the story of what he's been doing in service for the past 35 years. And it's amazing to see how some individuals in Israel contribute so much to the individual. So I wish Yoram Cohen best of luck, and Nadav, who's replacing him, even better luck than that in leading the Shabak in the next few years to come. But I would also like to say a few words for the guests that came here tonight. First of all, we had the delight pleasure of meeting Richard this morning with the finance minister, and this afternoon. For me, it was this morning, because so much has passed since then, so it looks like a morning to me. But yeah, it was in the afternoon, and we discussed some of the issues and the contribution of bonds to the state of Israel. I think that every individual that's sitting here in this room, Israel should be very grateful for it. We don't take it for granted that people outside Israel who don't live in Israel contribute so much to the land, and I think that the support that is given by the bonds is crucial. It's always reminding us that we have a strong and solid back that helps us and assists us, and God forbid we'll need it, but if we will, then it's there, and I think this contribution on behalf of the finance minister and myself is very highly appreciated. I would just also like to say a few words about the Israeli economy and leave you with a short personal story, and wish you the best of luck in the rest of your stay here in Israel. When we are looking today, building the 2017-2018 budget, it was decided to build a dual budget just a few days ago by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. We are targeting some of the most urgent issues that are a burden to our economy. It starts with the gaps in the economy, inequality gaps in our economy between the first tenth and the last tenth, and the difference in salaries. It goes also to the concentration and lack of competition that we have in our economy, and it also has to deal a lot with the housing crisis that we have in Israel. And we discussed all the possible ways that maybe the bonds can contribute to the housing crisis that we have today in Israel. And when we are trying to tackle those issues, we are trying to see how we can get productivity in Israel higher, how we can open up the market to more competition. When we look at our banking system, which is very much centralized, how can we make more competition? How can we deliver more credit to the private sector, specifically to SMEs, to small and medium businesses? How we can get the households to generate or to be able to be accessible, to have accessibility to credit, which is cheaper, but also available to them, which is something that is today quite difficult in Israel. And when we look at the housing crisis, we're trying to make sure that the housing will be more available and a decent price. What has happened in Israel when it comes to housing is that prices almost doubled themselves in the past 8 years. And this is a situation where if you look at the salary compared to what happened to the vacant salary compared to what happened to the prices of housing in Israel, you see that young people cannot anymore afford a house in Israel. And it's almost more than 80 or 90% of the population. Without the support of the parents, without the support of the family, it's almost impossible to buy a house. And I'm not talking about a house in Herzliya Pituach or a house in Savion, if you know those places. I'm talking about a decent house in the center of Israel, doesn't have anything to be in Tel Aviv. And when we try to look into the crisis and to try to understand why this crisis has happened, we see that most of the fault of this crisis has to do with government and how we governed our way into this crisis. And just to give you an example, it starts with bureaucracy. In Israel, it takes 13 years from the day you issue a plan till the day you get the key to the house. 13 years. Now, 10 of those out of those 13 years is the bureaucracy till you start building. The approval of the plans from the local committees to the district committees to the national committees to the land association to the planning association, and every single different entity that had to deal with buildings in Israel. And it took 13 years. That was the first issue. So instead of bringing out to the market 50 to 60,000 units, which we should have, we only took out to the market 30 or 40,000 units, best case scenario. Now take this gap over 10 years, make the multiplication, you'll see that there's lack of over demand and lack of supply of approximately 120,000 units of housing that are missing in the market. But that's just one case of it. The other problem was our bidding system. We own approximately 90 to 93% of the land. And we market the land out for units to be built. And when we looked at our bidding system, we saw that, as every government will initially think to do, you want to maximize the revenues out of the land. So your bidding system will be something as follows. So let's say you have in Afula an 1,800 unit land that you want to sell, you want to bid out. So if you learn game of theory, you'll know that you don't want to bid all 1,800 at once because then you won't get the best price. What we do, you break it down to little pieces and you sell piece by piece. Now let's say the first 100 pieces that you bid it out, the index price was 100, and then you bid it out and the contractors competed. Now let's say the contractor who wanted an index price of 104. What will be the initial bidding price for the next 100? 104, thank you very much. Someone knows their economy. Yeah. So you're the chairman of the board, right? So now we're in. So now I can sleep at night. But then that next 100 units starts at 104. And just by this bidding system, and this is a true story, 2012 I think, those 1,800 units, approximately a period of 2 years of bidding, just by this system, doesn't have to do anything with demand or anything with supply, just by this, we raise the price 35% on the land. Now if you raise the price 35% on the land, and the land is approximately a third of the price of the apartment, how much did I raise the apartment? Just by doing the step? Approximately 12%. So just by those steps that the government did, we just raised the prices over a period of 2 years by 12%. This has to do, and I haven't started yet talking about the over demand, I haven't started yet what happened to the costs of the elements, of the bricks, of the steel, all the elements that has to do with buildings. And what we've done is we said, well, we need to change that. We need to change the bidding system all over. Because who does the land belong to? It belongs to the country, but at the end of the day, it belongs to the people. Now, if the people have a housing crisis, instead of trying to maximize the revenues out of the land and then giving this money back to the budget, let's give discount on the land so that people will be able to afford the land. And not just go like this, just go direct. You get the money out of the land, give the discount on the land. And what we did, we changed the bidding system 180% around, and Minister Kahlon said, well, from now on, the bid will be as follows. Instead of maximizing revenues, we'll say the contractor who will sell the end apartment at the lowest price, he's the one that gets 50% discount on the land. Say it again. The contractor who will sell the end apartment at the lowest price, he's the one that will get approximately 50% discount on the land. And just by doing this, and we already ran 30,000 units by the end of 2015, already beginning of 2016 we did approximately another 15 to 20,000, so today all over we have about 45, 50,000 bids that were already made. We managed to decrease the prices of those units between 20 to 40%, depending on the area. And that's huge. That is a huge change. And now we start to have the lotteries for the people who win those houses. So now we have the contractors who won the units which they need to build. But now we also start to make the lotteries for the people who are going to live in those units. And we already sold approximately 1,000 units. And again, the prices were the prices that we're committed to. And they're approximately 30% behind market prices. And that makes it more affordable. So this is a little bit, I'm just giving you some of the taste of the things that we've been doing. We've also been dealing with the banks, separating the credit cards from the banks, trying to make competition in credit. We started to talk about our trade. Our trade is blocked to imports. If you work in trade in the US, you probably know this. There's a lot of goods that you can't import into Israel. You either have high customs, which makes it impossible to import, or you have quotas. Now, what we've seen that every place where we have a concentrated market and we can't import those goods, the prices here of the local market are very, very high. Why? You have a monopoly in the market. And you have also productivity, which is very low. But once you open it to competition, once you leave the quotas out, once you take the customs down and say you need to compete, and if we have to help the local market, we will help the local market. We'll give subsidies. But the way is not to block competition, and then, because let's say for the farmers, if we look at the vegetables or the fishes or the meat that are imported to Israel, because we have, let's say, and I'm exaggerating here, 20,000 farmers here in Israel, we will not jeopardize 8 million people cost of living for 20,000 farmers. What we can do is we can subsidize 20,000 farmers. That will cost us less than to block competition to make sure that 8 million people and 2.5 million households will pay more for the cost of living for the goods that they buy, for the goods that they eat. And this just is some of the examples, and there are many, many things that we're working on today for 2017, 2018.